For more on this is Stephen Farnsworth, political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, joining us from Washington. Thanks for your time today, Stephen.
Glad to be here.
Many people talking about the legacy that Senator John McCain will leave behind. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that's really important to think about what he has done as a lawmaker, because it really is an extraordinary career in a time when so many politicians really just retreat into the armed camps of being a Democrat or being a Republican, never ever conceding even a little bit to the other side. John McCain was one of those politicians who was really an example of bipartisan cooperation. He was clearly a Republican and clearly had conservative politics, but it was also important to him that problems do not always have Democratic solutions or Republican ones. And so throughout his career, he worked with Republicans and Democrats to try to figure out ways to deal with difficult environments. The war in Iraq, campaign finance reform, the immigration controversies in the United States. Over and over again, if there was a problem and there was an effort to try to create a bipartisan solution to that problem, John McCain was right in the middle of it.
And to your point there, Stephen, we were hearing, of course, that he had asked for both Barack Obama and George W. Bush, both of his political rivals at one point in his career, to give you the eulogies.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the nature of the shared enterprise that John McCain saw politics as being. George W. Bush defeated John McCain when they were both running for president as Republicans in 2000. And then, of course, in 2008, Barack Obama won the presidential election. John McCain was the Republican nominee, but came up short. But despite those defeats, and you saw with John McCain in the years after he had to go back to the Senate, that he appreciated the job and the opportunities that he was given to shape public policy, even with the people who had defeated him politically. This was a man who really appreciated the big picture, the problems that the country was facing, needing bipartisan solution, and McCain was there to work with it, even if he had lost an election to the man sitting in the White House.
And so many people are talking about the respect, the decency of his character, and that is something that is lacking right now in Washington these days in some fronts. So can you just talk about the type of hole that he's going to leave?
Well, I think that when you look at Washington without John McCain, it will be a less humorous place. It will be a less pleasant place to work, and it will really be a very difficult environment to find people like John McCain who are willing to speak up for some sort of agreement on policy issues that transcend one party or the other. I mean, one of the key things to remember about the American political system is that it has a lot of levers of power. I mean, you do not have parties that are as strong in the American system as they are in Westminster-style democracies. And so even when you control the White House and both the houses of Congress, if a single party is controlling all of those levers of power, there are still those share of independents and mavericks and those people who have disagreements about policy who can really put a stop into this process. And so it's important to remember that our system does really require some level of agreement, or at least acquiescence on the part of the minority party for the majority party to move forward. And John McCain was a key part of making that work, whether he was a Republican in the majority or a Republican in the minority, and he had opportunities to be both. His effort was to try to figure out a way to solve the problems in ways that both parties could find acceptable.
Stephen Farnsworth, political science professor at the University of Mary Washington. Great to get your thoughts on this. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.